I'm not at the den. We're at this carcasses that Hosana had yesterday. No sign of him at the moment. Maybe he's gone for a drink at Treehouse Dam in the meantime. But there is a hyena lurking below, patiently waiting. So you can see that there's very little left of the impala carcass. It's been pretty much stripped clean by Hosana. He's eaten all of that. Just the one hoof of the impala hanging down. You can see that metatarsal gland quite clearly now, that big black puffy patch. That's the gland that the impalas have on the back of their back legs. So it's only them that has that. And then the steenbok seems as though it hasn't actually been touched yet. It's still dangling high up in the branches right at the top there. He's been turned around. It's not facing the same way, so I think maybe a little bit has been eaten off the rump area. But there's the steenbok, and it's a very small steenbok. It's a little baby. I thought it was slightly bigger than what it actually is, but that's also up in the tree. So the hyenas are at the bottom. No sign of Hosana at all. I can't see him anywhere. I'm looking under all the bushes and trees to see if he's maybe just resting. Apparently he was in the tree when we were at Twin Dams, which is not even 10 minutes ago, so I don't know where he's gone. But Treehouse Dam is close enough that maybe he's gone for a wander just to go and have a little bit of a drink. Now, I'm not sure which hyena we've got here. Maybe some of you will be able to identify our hyena. I would imagine it's the same one from last night. That's been lurking around, patiently waiting for some scraps. It's difficult to ID them when they're lying flat like this. Don't see their markings nearly as easily. I can tell you that it is a young hyena. The ears are completely whole. You can see the spots are still very bright, and it's not a very big individual. So maybe one of the offspring, like Jan or one of those, it could be them. So it'll be interesting to know who it actually is. But it's amazing how much of that carcass is been picked clean. There's literally nothing left of that impala. So I think he must have dropped some of it as well, given that hyenas are around. And oh, there he is. You see him. He's right in front of us. It's amazing their camouflage, actually. He's sitting directly in front of me, just through there somewhere. So where are you, Hosana? There we are. So you can see how difficult it is to actually see them sometimes. So luckily he was kind of panting a little bit and his movement caught my eye. But you can see that is one hot, full kitty, and it's not even gotten very hot yet. He's going to be suffering a little bit later, but a happy cat nonetheless. He's got that face of contentness. He's just kind of happy that he's got food and he's taking it all. And you can see he's smelling a little bit. You can't still be hungry, so I don't think he's going to go back up into the tree anytime soon, and especially with that hyena lurking so close, I'd imagine he's just going to rest here for a while and wait for the heat of the day to pass and then go up later, much like what we saw yesterday. No one likes me. You want to know if hyenas can climb trees? Nope. And that's why the leopard puts those carcasses up in the tree, is so that these hyenas don't get to the food. If he had that on the ground, he would have been muscled off by these hyenas and they would have stolen it from him. So that's why he's put it up there, and it's a really clever tactic that leopards have, and it's a great skill that he's learned from his mom, because some of the other leopards out here tend not to do it. So we know that Shadow is very bad at it. She often leaves carcasses on the ground and they get stolen by hyenas. So it seems as though Hosana has learned his lesson and he's put his carcasses in trees, and that means that he at least can feed off them for quite some time. So he's done very well in that regard. It's quite funny to watch hyenas. You'll be surprised though how high a hyena can jump to get to food. I once saw a female down in the south of the Sabi Sands called Warthog Wallow female, and she had put up a carcass in a tree that you would think would have been safe. It was quite high up. I didn't think there would be really too much worry, and a hyena came along and it jumped very high and it managed to grab onto just the tip of the leg, and that was enough to unseat the carcass and bring it crashing down to the ground. And at that stage Warthog Wallow had walked off to go and fetch her cub, and she came back with the cub to a scene of no food. The hyenas had dragged it all away, and she could see the kind of disbelief in her face as she had hung it perfectly in this branch, and I'm sure she thought it was out of the way of hyenas, but it wasn't. These hyenas jumped probably, I would say, over their body height, that sort of height up into the air, and then stretched fully up. It is actually quite a long way. Sorry, Seb, I'm in the way a little bit here. I'm going to try and reposition Seb so that he doesn't have to shoot over my head, because otherwise I'm going to ruin things for him. I just don't know if we're going to get a good view of him, Seb, but let's try. Joe, you want to know if leopards roar. Joe, leopards, it's not really a roar, more than what we call a saw. So it is a loud sound that is produced that is almost like roaring, but we call it sawing. So it is basically part of the roaring process, and it's why leopards are classified as pardus, which is the roaring cats, or the cats that are able to produce a roar. But we refer to it as sawing rather than roaring. Seb, do you want me to go forward a little bit more? Let's try. No, we'll be alright. It's not too bad, don't worry. We'll just keep our foot on. There we go. So, as much as I can go, Seb, I think, for now. But you can see he's watching the hyena. The hyena's moving around, so he's just checking to make sure that this hyena hasn't stolen anything from him. Also, you've got to be aware of hyenas as a young male leopard. But it just goes to show, when you have a situation like this with hyena and leopard on the ground, you can see they're both kind of seeing each other, and it's interesting because they're both fairly young individuals, so they know that there's a respect for one another. They're making sure that they're not going after each other, and that they respect the fact that they could get injured, and their main focus is what's in the tree, so they will leave each other alone. It's only if there was carcass on the ground that the hyenas would be quite a danger to Hosana. Shame, my boy, are you full and hot? Toby, you're wondering why the vultures haven't come to eat the carcass from the tree. Quite simply, they probably haven't seen it. It's not easy to see a carcass from above when there's foliage on it, and this particular tree does have foliage, and so it would be very difficult for the vultures to see those legs dangling from underneath the canopy. Remember, their point of view is from above, so it's not like us that is able to see a carcass in a tree from low down like we have with these ones, and they have a little bit harder time of it. They've got to try and actually see it from above. So things like buffaloes, carcasses and lions, when they kill, they tend to be out in the open and the vultures see them very easily, but things like this in a tree, very difficult for the vultures to see. You want to go back to your kill again. He seems to be very worried about his carcass. I think with the hyena moving around, he wants to make sure that it's still safe. I wonder if he'll go back up. You are too full though. You're like a beach ball, Hosana. Look at the size of that tummy. It is full, 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 full. And he has this face like he's just had the best meal ever, and he's just loving the fact that he's got a full tummy. Look at that, enjoying the breeze blowing. That is one content cat at this stage of the day. Full, but content. And his eyes are getting darker by the day. It almost looks as though they are getting darker. He's kind of started with much lighter eyes than what Shongile had, but they seem to be getting more and more sort of darker as the days go on. Maybe it's just the way the light is hitting them at the moment that it seems that way, but they almost look as though they're a lot less yellow than what we've been seeing when he was still a cub with Shongile. But he's found himself a perfect spot. He's got a nice bit of shade from another guarri tree. You can see the guarri tree just on the right of where he is, and that's providing the perfect place for him to lie down. And it just shows you how well they camouflage. We had been here for about 5 minutes before we even noticed that he was here. If he lies down flat and puts his head down, you'll find that that mottled sort of colour and those spots will all blend in together with the dappled light over that's coming through that guarri tree, and it becomes very difficult to see him. So lucky we saw him pop his head up, otherwise I don't think we would have found him here. We probably would have gone off to Treehouse Dam to look to see if he was potentially drinking and missed him completely. What are you listening to? Jacqueline, you're wondering if the leopard's eyesight will deteriorate as they get older. Yes, so their eyesight is going to get worse as they go. They'll develop, potentially develop glaucomas or cataracts, and so their eyesight will worsen as they get a little bit older, much like us as people. But it's still very good. Either way, they're still going to have great eyesight. And if their eyes are damaged, we have seen a number of females with one eye, and they're still able to do just fine out here. They will use their other senses like hearing and their whiskers and their sense of smell to be able to be successful. So we know that Safari, Karula's mother, she had one eye for 6 years, and she managed to survive all the way up to over 19 years old, which is incredibly old for a leopard. So, you know, they are able to deal with the loss of sight in one eye, and as they get older, I'm sure their eyesight is not quite as sharp as when they're a little bit younger. What are you watching? It's funny to watch him. He's still got a bit of youth in him. He's very kind of twitchy and lurks around all over the place, and any movement sort of triggers him to have a look. You'll find with more adult or older leopards, when they have carcasses like this, so somebody like Tingana, he wouldn't worry too much at all. He'd be kind of, even if there was a rustle in the grass behind him, he'd kind of maybe open his eye, but he wouldn't be nearly as alert as what Hosana is. I'm sure he's very thankful for the breeze that is blowing today, because without that I would imagine he would be one hot cat. It's gotten very warm, and especially in the sun now it's starting to feel like there's a bit of a bite to it, so I would imagine he's pretty happy of the wind that's blowing. But it's quite cool to actually see underneath the tree here. There's bits of rumen and fur all over the place here. It's quite nice to see actually. So we've got bits of the impala fur which have been plucked off, so you'll find our leopard will try not to actually eat that. He's going to try and pick that off and throw it down. So there's the fur that you can see, and there'll be a bit of it maybe is from the steenbok as well, and that's from underneath. And then just to the left of that is a bit of the rumen up against the tree there. So that's the stomach content of said impala or steenbok that's been pulled out and dropped to the ground. They're not going to want to eat that. They'll eat the lining of the stomach, but that will be the rumen that is ejected and then left on the ground. And it's got quite a pungent smell. That's why it brought my attention to it, is the smell. Oh, Sept, look at the hyena and Hosana, they're together. He's busy watching the hyena. The hyena's just in line. Isn't that cool? So you've got leopard there, and then hyena just behind it in the background. You can just see it poking through the bushes. Now, Hosana is watching the hyena. The hyena's not watching Hosana at all. And there goes the hyena strolling off into the distance. So you can see Hosana just watching the hyena moving off. And that hyena's moving off to where Tundi was yesterday. There's been no reports of Tundi this morning. I wonder if she's not still lurking around. We might just watch and see what happens there. And while we do that, I believe James is bumbling around to the... I'm sure warthogs will be on the menu. We've seen him chasing piglets quite often. So it's only a matter of time until he gets it right and actually manages to get them. Of course, hunting warthogs is always quite a dangerous thing. It's never the easiest thing to do. And I've seen a number of leopards come quite short when it comes to hunting warthogs and get themselves into all kinds of trouble. Remember, Mufufenyan got hit in the head by a tusk and had this massive gash between his eyes and over the top of his head from a warthog tusk. So it's not an easy feat. So Hosana's going to have to probably bulk up a little bit more before he tangles with those big male warthogs that we have in this area. It's not going to be an easy animal to bring down. It's better off sticking with impalas for now until he grows a little bit larger. But it's interesting how the male leopards tend to go after these warthogs a lot more. We know Anderson is a huge exponent of warthogs as well. He likes to go from mound to mound, and Mvula, Tingana, they both do it as well. And you'll find Anderson will go and he'll actually go down the hole. And it's very uncommon to see leopards going into the hole of the termite mound where there's a warthog in, because often the warthogs are sitting with their tusk facing forward, and that leopard then gets a face full of tusk. So it's very strange to see, but Anderson backs himself and he goes crawling down, and often you see him in there and then he grabs his warthog and pulls them out. And it's amazing to see how difficult it is to actually get those warthogs out of those holes. You'd think that it would be quite easy once he grabs them to pull them out, but it's almost, it's like watching a champagne cork effectively. I know it sounds horrible, but the warthogs almost wedge themselves in, and this leopard struggles, and eventually then he'll be able to like pop it out and the warthog comes out. But it's a lot of effort that goes into it, and there's obviously a lot of noise associated with warthog hunts. It's never the most pleasant thing to watch. But most, like I say, most of the male leopards that I've spent time around have a propensity to go after warthogs, particularly in those mounds. You'll often see them sitting. I remember Kashan male once sitting on top of a mound in Singita, and he picked off 7 warthog piglets before he was done in the morning. So each time a piglet would run out, he would grab one and put it on top of the mound and kill it, and then you'd wait and sit, and then another piglet would run out and you'd grab that. And by the end of the morning, like I say, he had a grand total of 7 of these piglets on top of the mound. It was quite something to actually watch. What was also interesting is that he ignored the adults completely, so he didn't go after the mother or the male that came out of that mound. He waited until the piglets started coming out and then grabbed them instead. So even though he had to do it 7 times in total, by the end of it he probably got quite a bit of meat out of it. The piglets weren't tiny, they were probably about 2 months old by then, so they were already put on a little bit of size, so 7 of them was a fairly decent meal for that leopard, and he ended up devouring those through the day. It's quite common to see as after a leopard's fed in the morning that he'll go and try and just groom himself, get rid of any of that meat or any bits of the carcass that potentially are on him, and make sure that that coat is nice and clean. He's actually looking very clean considering he's been feeding the last 2 days. A bit of blood around the muzzle area, but other than that, he's well groomed and certainly taking care of himself. Beautiful spotted pattern, isn't it? But you can see that breathing is very heavy, and that swollen tummy where the white is. And those back paws. So those are also going to get slightly larger. They're still little at this stage. The back paws will get bigger and more elongated. He's still growing. He's gone into a stalk. There the hyena is again. So you see he's now kind of lowering his body posture and to watch the hyena in the background. So Chris Rogue, you say that it looks like the hyena is Sol, which is one of Gwen's offspring. So it's at least nice to know. I wonder how you identify Sol. Maybe Chris Rogue, if you can let us know what's the identifying features. But it's going to be interesting because this hyena is now walking straight towards Hosana. You can see Hosana's got his kind of head up and is watching. And I wonder if this hyena is not going to come up the path. Look at this. They're kind of squaring off, and Hosana's getting low to the ground, trying to make himself as small as possible. No, he's decided not having any of this. He's growling. Look at this. So you can see, look how close they are together. How cool is this? This is awesome. So the hyena is sniffing where Hosana is now lying. They're no more than, I would say, 2 meters apart at the moment. And Hosana is just watching, just to see. The hyena is not really worried about Hosana. It's trying to see if there's any bit of the carcass that's there. But Hosana, I'm sure, is going to give way. Look how close they are. This is ridiculous. Hosana, you can't make friends with hyenas. And the hyena is going to promptly lie exactly where Hosana was lying. Hosana, what is going on here? This is just completely unusual. Thinks that these guys are eternal enemies all the time. Are you going to lie down right here next to him? It looks like Hosana might just decide to lie down right next to this hyena. He is too. There's a little bit of a growl from Hosana. He's not that impressed that the hyena stole his shady spot. This is really cool. You're going to go to the toilet. You're going to show that hyena what you think of him. Fair enough. Hopefully the wind is not... Hopefully there's not going to be downwind from where we are, because otherwise it's going to smell very pleasant. And I believe a lot of you are very confused by this interaction. Well, this is a typical situation from young individuals. Look, they're busy staring at each other. This is ridiculous. So 2 young individuals that are not too stressed by each other. They're both kind of giving each other a bit of respect in that they'll look at each other. Hosana will growl. Hyena knows it's not really worth the effort to go after the leopard. And Hosana knows he's not going to fight with the hyena because he's going to get himself hurt. So that's why they're just kind of staring at each other. But it's ridiculous to see the 2 of them as close as they are. It really is. It's quite unusual, that's for sure. Patty, you say Hosana seems a bit nervous of the hyena. Well, I'm sure he's a bit nervous of the hyena. At the end of the day, the hyena could potentially do a bit of damage to him. You can see Hosana is just walking pretty much under the car at this stage. and behind Seb's backside and around the other side. So he will be a bit nervous. He's obviously going to take into account that the hyena could be dangerous to him, but at the end of the day, where's Hosana?
Right behind us.
Is he still right behind us?
He's laying down, yeah.
Oh no. We might be stuck here for a while,
Yeah.
Seb. So if Hosana lies right behind us, there's no way I can go, because I can't go forward at all, so we'll have to just wait for Hosana to move. But he is, like I say, he's going to be a bit nervous of the hyena, because he knows if that hyena decides to actually get hold of him, he's going to have a serious problem, because hyena's jaw power is so much. So he'll be a bit wary of him, but at the same time, I think there's a bit of curiosity to see, hang on, what is this hyena up to, and how much can I push my luck? Also, he doesn't want the hyena to take his shade, so there's a bit of bravado, and as a male leopard gets older, so he'll be less tolerant of hyenas like this. If this was a big male leopard and this young hyena, you'd find that the big male leopard would have probably growled and hissed and stood its ground and not moved. But Hosana, being a little bit younger, is a bit wary that he might get himself into a bit of trouble. But how cool is that? That's not something you're going to see every day, that's for sure. That was very cool. So Seb says he can't even film Hosana. So Seb's going to try and see if he can get Hosana from behind us here, because apparently he's lying. Oh, there, I can just see his paws behind the back of the vehicle. Mrs. Zero, you say, wow, what a moment to witness. Well, I agree, Mrs. Zero. It is an incredible thing to have seen. It's not something we're going to see every day. Now, unfortunately, Seb can't get to Hosana. That's how close he's lying behind us. He's literally lying behind the back wheel. So he's not going to be able to see him at all. I can see him just over my shoulder. I can see his little head peering out from behind the car. But other than that, he's going to be a bit hidden. So our hyena is sleeping. Hosana is sleeping. Everybody seems to have found their place. But that's going to mean that we're going to be stuck here until such time as Hosana decides to move. Hello, boy. He's busy just watching Seb with these big eyes. It's quite amazing actually to watch. So the hyena is kind of up and sort of looking around and listening, but Hosana is very curious as to what Seb is doing. He's kind of watching Seb all the time, and he's lying so close that it's quite interesting just to watch his behavior with Seb. You're making a friend there, Seb.
Yes, he's my friend.
It's incredible how relaxed these two cats are, Hosana and Shongile. Nikki, you say he's doing a tour of the vehicle. Well, hopefully he'll keep his tour to the ground and on the outside of the car and doesn't decide to jump on the car, because that won't be very pleasant at all. And it has happened. I have seen videos of leopards jumping onto cars, and while cheetah are one thing, a leopard is a completely different story. I certainly wouldn't want Hosana on this car at all, and we would try and stop him from doing that. If he even put his paws on, we'd start the car, and the vibration and the noise of the car would be enough to deter him and keep him at bay. And that's how it's got to be. Unfortunately, you can't get him into bad habits. He's not allowed to be on the cars, and so if he did try, we would just keep him at bay as much as possible. But it is incredible to kind of be sandwiched between these two as they watch each other. So, Mrs. Zero, you say Seb and Hosana are having a bromance. Well, you should see it, Mrs. Zero. They're staring into each other's eyes. There's romance in the air. It's a soft, tender moment. I feel a little bit like a third wheel at the moment. Maybe I should leave the two of them alone for some time. And no, I'm just kidding. Seb, don't worry. Shan will kill me if I leave you with Hosana. She'll be very concerned as to why you've got eyes for a leopard.
I think she would be very jealous.
Do you think she's going to be jealous? I'm sure she will be jealous. Okay, are you wondering why Seb and I are so relaxed when we're sitting between a hyena and a leopard? Well, the reason is, KR, is that neither of these animals want to do anything to us. They both have spent enough time around vehicles that they know we're not a threat in any way. You can see the hyena is sleeping. It's not even facing us at the moment. And Hosana behind us, well, he's watching us, but he's really just curious more than anything else. He's a relaxed individual. He knows that this vehicle is not trying to take the food away from him. We're not trying to chase him from the food. We're not trying to hurt him. And so it's a relaxed situation. It's just something that you have to sit and enjoy and experience the two of them around us is just such a pleasure that it's nothing else that you can do. So there's no point in stressing. He's not going to hurt us in any way. He's really going to just try and kind of sit and watch and see what goes on. But I think he's moving. Is he moving those?
He's laid down again.
Oh no, I thought he moved a little bit. Even more behind us. Oh well, that's okay. I see the hyenas also just sniffing around a little bit. We're watching. You can see he's looking at the leopard a little bit as well. I think these two are both curious of one another. Quite funny though that the hyenas lay exactly where Hosana was. It's almost like there was a competition over the shade of this area. So they seem to have kind of struck a deal now. Hosana's using our shade, the hyena using the shade of the quarry, and everybody seems quite content with life. There's a Cape turtle dove that's chiming in at the moment as well, over our shoulders. Now I heard something in the distance. Did you hear that, Seb? Sounded like an alarm call. I wonder if maybe Tundi's not moving around here somewhere, but it sounded quite far away. You can see the hyena's looking in the same direction that I heard it coming from. So over sort of on our right hand side, it almost sounded like a bushbuck alarm calling, but I can't hear it again. It's quite difficult with the earpiece in to hear on the right side. Yes, can you hear it in the distance?
Yeah, I heard something now, yeah.
So there's a kudu or a bushbuck alarm calling in the distance.
Branches breaking over there, no?
Might be. But I can hear the kudu
there's elephants over there.
very clearly. And Seb has spotted some elephants too.
I don't know if I can put them on camera, but there's some elephants there.
So it's all happening. We've got kudu alarm calling, we've got elephants breaking branches, which is in the distance, and we've got a leopard behind us and a hyena to our left. It really is quite crazy. Hopefully our ellies will come down eventually. So somewhere in the distance there you can see the tail wagging of an elephant, and there's the rest of the body going forward. So there's the trunk. This is awesome. Everything is happening in this area. It's really quite cool just to be sitting here, and we're in a shady spot, so it's perfect. I wonder if our ellies will go down towards Treehouse Dam for a drink, or if they're going to come and sort of join the party that's under the tree. And while we do that, let's talking about party, I wonder what James is doing in his spiffy red jacket in the Masai Mara. We are with the hyena and with Hosana. The elephants all have just filed past us and have gone. Unfortunately, there's no more view of them. It was beautiful though. They were walking straight across, and Hosana was watching them, and we had the hyena and the leopard on either side of us and the elephants in front of us. It was really quite special. So they didn't stick around for long though. They kind of seem as though they're on a serious mission to get somewhere. So they were walking very quickly to the east, and you can see Hosana is now man down. He is a tired cat, and it's hot, and he just can't be bothered anymore. So he's now going to sleep, and you can see the little tongue sticking out at the bottom there. You silly boy, you don't look very clever when you have your tongue out like that. But he's hot, and so his mouth is open, and he's just helping to breathe and cool himself down. But you can see he's still very alert with the wind that's rustling the grass, and he knows there's a hyena close by. He's got to be a little bit more alert as to what's happening. We haven't heard those kudu alarm call again. They sounded quite far from where we are, so I think that's something that we'll probably have to try and look at this afternoon, rather than having a look now. I don't think we've got enough time to find where that was. It sounds like somewhere off Pangolin Track, Chelapan area, somewhere in that general vicinity. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's Tundi or maybe even Tumba that's moving around in that side. I'm not sure where Tumba last was seen. I think he was last seen on Chitwa, so maybe he's that side and is coming back looking for Mom. Although he tends to stay in one place when Mom leaves him. He doesn't seem to move around. He's not like some of the other cubs that I've hung around with that seem to be naughty and move a little bit more. We know that Shongile and Hosana never seem to sit still. But I'm not sure about Shongile. For those who are wondering about updates, I haven't heard anything. I don't know. I haven't heard anywhere or any updates of her. Seb, was there anything while I was on leave? So Arnava, you were asking as well? No, nothing.
No,
I don't know. I'll have to ask around and just see. I'll ask some of the other guides if there's been any sightings of her in other parts of the reserve. She might be on Little Gowrie at the moment, which means we won't see too much of her, but I'll ask the guys that traverse there in case there is some sort of sign of her that side, but not too much. But we know Shongile, she's like this. She kind of flies under the radar. We see her every now and then we'll go a week or 2 or 3 weeks without seeing her, and then all of a sudden she pitches up again, and she kind of arrives in the most random situation. So well, hopefully we'll see her soon and we'll be able to find her. And I'm surprised that she hasn't found Hosana. She tends to walk around this area quite often, so it would have been nice if we had had the two of them together here. But with Thandi and Shadow being here, I suppose it's not a great place for Shongile to be at the moment. It's better that she's somewhere else and flying low and keeping out of harm's way. But that is one very sleepy, very tired kitty. I wonder if those elephants are moving so fast, if they're trying to get down towards the Mulawati now with the wind that's picked up. You know, Ellies don't really like the wind, so I wonder if they're not trying to get into the drainage lines where it's going to be a little bit more pleasant and less windy, because they really did move very quickly. They went from feeding on a tree and then all of a sudden the whole herd just started going and disappeared within about 5 minutes, so something got them going. Maybe they also picked up the scent of this carcass, and smell of death sometimes gets elephants moving a little faster. Our hyena and is also as asleep as Hosana at this stage. Mr. P, you're asking if I think Hosana is particularly pale on the bottom side, so like underneath the, I suppose you're referring to his stomach? No, in no way. He's just like any other leopard. They're all very white underneath. If you see any leopard lying like that, you'll find that they have these very white bellies. So Thandi, Shadow, they're all the same. In terms of his coat color, he's lighter than what Tumba is. Tumba's got a more gold color than what Hosana does, but he's still got a beautiful sort of orangey goldish color around the back, and particularly right down the middle of his back is very pretty. So, Hosana and the hyenas are both hyena, should I say, are both sleeping and taking it very easy, and I don't think we're going to see much more for them, so I think we'll probably start to make our way back, but I believe James Hendry is in the Mara with some of our descendants.